Okay, we are now live.
Okay, for those of you on the call, please be sure to mute your devices when not speaking. I'm doing an official call to order for the NECAT board meeting for this day, the 28th of May, 2020. Out of an abundance of caution and pursuant to recommendations from federal, state, and local health agencies regarding avoiding group gatherings due to the COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting is a teleconference meeting. We have made public comments and questions available through the NECAT website, though as of 11 o'clock this morning, there were no items or questions submitted, so we will not be having any public discussion or public questions proposed to the board meeting at this time. I will now take a roll call of the board members that are in attendance. When I say your name, please unmute yourself and say present. Shauna-Lynn Brandmeier.
Present.
Shayla Paz Hicks.
Present.
Aisha Labala.
Present. I'm here.
Brian Mansfield.
Present.
Brian Rossman.
Present.
Dana Schroering.
Present.
Willie Sims Jr.
Present.
Joe Woolley.
Present.
And now I'm also going to be stating the names of others who are in attendance, starting with Chris Singleton. Chris, if you could acknowledge your presence. John Ferguson.
I'm here.
John Ferguson.
Yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Thank you. Chris, I wasn't sure if that was you or Chris. Chris, did you acknowledge?
Hey, what's up, man?
Okay. Rachel Kenyon.
Present.
Cameron McCaslin.
Present.
So the board must vote on the record that the COVID-19 pandemic requires us to hold a telephonic meeting as permitted under the governor's executive order number 16. Do I have a motion to hold an electronic meeting? I recognize Shauna-Lynn.
I'll make the motion that we hold this through an electronic meeting, given the statement that you've already read to us.
Seconded.
Okay, seconded. I will now take the roll of votes for this motion. When I say your name, please unmute yourself and respond yay or nay to this motion. Shauna-Lynn Brandmeier.
Yes.
Shayla Paz Hicks.
Yes.
Aisha Labala.
Yes.
Brian Mansfield.
Yes.
Brian Rossman.
Yes.
Dana Schroering.
Yes.
Willie Sims Jr.
Yes.
and Joe Woolley.
Yes.
Now, do I also have a motion to suspend the current rules? Shauna-Lynn?
I'll make a motion to suspend the current rules.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Recognize Shayla. Now we'll do the roll call for when I say your name, please unmute yourself and say yay or nay to this motion to suspend the rules. Shauna-Lynn Brandmeier.
Yes.
Shayla Paz Hicks.
Yes.
Aisha Labala.
Yes.
Brian Mansfield.
Yes.
Brian Rossman.
Yes.
Dana Schroering.
Yes.
And Willie Sims Jr.
Yes.
and Joe Woolley.
Yes.
All right. So that is the official script and notification for voting on making this a teleconference call as opposed to an in-person meeting. With that, I want to move to our existing agenda, which I did forward over along with the other financial packets. Beginning with some updates from the last meeting. As of now, we have indeed received the official payroll protection money that we applied for Cam's salary to a total of $92.50, which is now secured in our Ascend savings account. The big payback total for donations that happened on the 6th of this month, total $254 from a handful of donors. I wanted to thank everybody for posting and contributing to those who did. We had an update from Ascend directly on the $5,000 grant that we were approved for in January. They are holding at the moment to better assess the impact of their income and as a result of the pandemic. They do not anticipate there being any changes to their funding, but they are still waiting to determine how they will be able to disperse the funding based on their projected financials. This will lead into a bigger conversation when we get to the budget. And as mentioned before, we do have the 2,500 Pred Sports TV grant money that has come in, that has been received, sitting in our savings account until we can officially execute said sports TV camp, hopefully this summer. In both cases, whether it be the Ascend grant when it comes in and the Predators Sports TV camp grant, those will be held in the savings account until we actually execute. Under the worst case scenario that we aren't able to execute what this money was granted for, and we have to give it back. Hopefully that is not going to be the situation. I would like to move to, since it's been since January, since we've had an official quorum and board meeting, I did send out both the minutes for January as well as the financials for each subsequent month, and would like to make those official into record. I don't know if you've all had a chance to take a look at those. I'll defer to Aisha or Rachel to comment on any of those financials before we have any kind of official vote on them.
The only comment I would have is that there's absolutely nothing unusual. It's the exact same monthly expenses that we've been experiencing. We haven't had any influx of expenses or unusual, unexpected transactions going out. So it should be pretty straightforward, but I'm happy to answer any particulars.
Yes, and I didn't see anything out of the blue either.
If there aren't any questions about the financials, is there a motion to approve?
Tyler, do you want a separate motion for the minutes and one for the financials? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going in reverse order. I think I'd read the financials first.
Okay. I'll move to that we approve the financials. And that is for, do you want for February, March, and April? Looking at the three documents?
Yeah, I mean, for basically the months where we have not had, we provided January's and February's that we didn't have a quorum. We will need to approve those. And we've supplied the additional months financials leading up through April.
Then I'll make a motion that we approve all the financials as reported and received.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm going to go down again with the roll and take the vote. Shonalyn Brandmeier,
Yes.
Shayla Pauls Hicks,
Yes.
Aisha Labala,
Yes.
Brian Mansfield,
Yes.
Brian Rossman,
Yes.
Dana Schroering,
Yes.
Willie Sims Jr.,
Yes.
and Joe Woolley.
Yes.
Moving on to the minutes. Technically, we only have to supply the minutes from the last official meeting, though we did put on February's minutes because that was a lot to do with the initial concept of the business plan. I hope you've all had a chance to review those. And if you've not, take a minute or so to do so. And when anyone is ready, if someone would like to make a motion, just please make yourself aware.
Minutes.
Brian, is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll
Just
take
trying
the
not
roll.
to be the only one that seconds things.
There you go. All right, let's go ahead and take the roll to approve the minutes. Shonalyn Brandmeier,
Yes.
Shayla Pauls Hicks,
Yes.
Aisha Lavala,
Yes.
Brian Mansfield,
Yes.
Brian Rossman,
Yes, sir.
Dana Schroering,
Yes.
Willie Sims Jr.,
Yes.
and Joe Woolley.
Yes.
Okay, with that, the minutes also go into record. Moving on, I would like to acknowledge Cameron McCaslin for his monthly, or actually latest, NECAT report. Cam, if you can let us know what's been going on since we've had the last official meeting.
Sure. Thanks, Tyler. So I wanted to just put a couple of dates on things just so we could establish it. Monday, March 16th was the last day that we were open at NECAT. That was a Monday. I was there alone all day. We got the call late in the afternoon that they were going to close down the studio. Since that time, on Monday, April 20th, I went back into the office to retrieve my desktop computer after having some trouble with my computer here at home, just so that way we could keep NECAT up and running. Tuesday, May the 12th, I went and checked the mail at Nashville State. I was able to get into the building after a couple different security checks, and was able to get our mail. The following day, on May 13th, I met with Tyler to turn over just the checks that had come through the mail and to give anything that was pertinent to the board to him to have a look at. There wasn't really much there in the way of mail. Other than that, May the 1st, we submitted the interim report to the Community Foundation for our discretionary grant. Nothing really more to say there than just to let them know that our plans were still the same whenever we continue back to NECAT, to be able to do all of our same educational programs that we have been doing as soon as we can safely, establish that again. We continue to receive member-produced shows, and we've seen no delays in our regular scheduled programming. Some of our producers continue to shoot from home, including new types of home concert performances, family-produced content, and even a public service announcement on washing your hands. We've also been in contact with the mayor's office to help relay any safety measures through our interstitial slides that run between programming. And we've established a programming block for MNPS airing educational content that is airing every weekday for at least an hour. As more content comes available to us from MNPS, we will be expanding that as needed. I want to publicly thank our Metro staff for just kind of helping make all of this possible. Tim, Adam, John, and Chris have all been in contact with me during this time just to help navigate and troubleshoot anything that has come up. And for the most part, we have been able to run flawlessly from home and, keeping everything on the air. Tyler had already mentioned at the first of this, we received $254 at the big payback. And we also received our Predators Foundation check, which, like I said, we got in the mail on May the 12th. The only other thing that I have to report, just to put it on record, October 30th, we have a mid-year report due for the Predators grant. That's really the only thing that's coming up that we're going to have to touch on. I fully expect that we're going to be able to be back, establish our camp the same way that we did last year, and run all of that in the same way we always have. So I don't think it's going to be problematic at all, but that's the only other date. Otherwise, I've been really impressed. We've had I don't have an exact count. Had almost 40 different shows turned in the 2 months that we've been home. So I think at the start of this, there was a lot of people who had time to really sit down and finish the programs that they had started. And then we've had other people that have found ways to make it work from home. It's a little bit different, obviously, not having a TV studio and shooting things on their phones, but I've been really encouraged by the members that I've talked to through email and on the telephone and through social media on just giving them things that they could do and making it easy for them to get the paperwork in that needs to get in, and just keeping everything running like a top, which it really has. Anyone have any questions for me on that?
I would actually like to, thank you, Cam. I would actually like to open this up to either Chris or John, because this is probably the good time to talk about the studio itself. Initially, we were part of the phase 3 reopening. Didn't know if either one of you had any more insight about any kind of guidelines that the library would be doing that we would also replicate as far as social distancing, etc.
So this is John Ferguson. We are, as far as Chris and I know, we are still in line with the phase 3 reopening. We are going to be working in parallel with the library and opening up when they do. So I don't have any further information other than what we sort of reported on the last informal meeting, but we are going to obviously be taking the mayor and the health officials' recommendations into account when reopening the PEG studio, and we're not going to stray from that for obvious reasons. Yesterday, Tim Jarvis and myself went to the studio to continue working on the equipment upgrades that we were in the process of once this, you know, initially when the studios got closed down, we were actually in the middle of upgrading the equipment. And so we have continued on that path, and currently in phase 2 of our installation and our capital improvement project that we were in the process of installing. Number 1 being the video, number 2 being the audio, number 3 being field equipment, and number 4 being lighting. So we are currently still in phase 2 of that project, meaning that what we wanted to accomplish is that when we were ready to reopen the studio, we'd be ready with the equipment that we had already purchased, being the video equipment and the audio equipment. I'd be happy to resend for some of the newer board members, resend the plan that we had for that, which I made multiple presentations on during these NECAT board meetings. But essentially what we are going to be upgrading is the video switcher, which is going to include pan, tilt, and zoom cameras, PTZ cameras, which will cut back on the amount of crew necessary for NECAT producers and alleviate some of the issues people were having and getting crew. And then also upgrading heavily the audio equipment in the studio to allow for more multi-track recordings in the studio for people who have music shows. And so that's currently where we are with that. Again, we still need to go through phase 3, which is going to be upgrading the field equipment, and then phase 4, which is upgrading the lighting equipment. So those 2 phases are sort of put on pause while Chris and I are being very, very heavily needed in our M&N duties with everybody doing remote meetings and us needing to record those. So in addition to Chris and I being heavily involved in our M&N duties, we also have pulled the PEG staff, Tim, which consists right now of Tim Jarvis and Adam Krulevich. We pulled them to be staff members at M&N as well, so that they can continue to have day-to-day jobs while they're continuing their PEG studio duties. So it's been good for them to kind of be able to learn new skills at M&N and also alleviate some of the pressure we've been having with an increase in requests for projects and for recordings. So that's sort of where we are with the studio, and we are desperately looking forward to reopening. At least I am, and I know we'll be ready when that happens, and we'll have brand new toys for everybody who is coming back, which is going to be very exciting. I remember last time we upgraded the studio heavily, there was a very, very large increase in membership, which I'm hoping happens again this time, which obviously, as we all know, we could definitely use sort of a resurgence in membership, and I'm pretty confident that we will have that.
Excellent. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Would you mind actually sending a brief recap of where we are in the phases? I know you said you have, I remember the presentation, but if you could just send me so I can include it in minutes.
Definitely.
Cameron, I had one follow-up question. This is Shauna.
Sure.
On the educational 1 hour a week, have we done a social media post about that or any of the new content we have? Because I think we could do that and raise awareness for those people that maybe don't know about the channel or haven't watched in a while. It might be good to promote that so they know it's there.
That's a great idea. I'll make sure that gets out this week.
Okay, great, thanks. And then we can all reshare it too.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Charlotte. And on to board discussion. In your packet or in the email, there was a fiscal year 2021 budget worksheet, working with Aisha and Rachel, kind of a bare bones sketch of what things are looking like as we start the new fiscal year in July. If you guys don't mind pulling it up, I'm just going to walk through a couple things, or Aisha or Rachel, feel free to chime in. What we did on this, given the uncertainty of both the studio opening, the number of classes being able to be held, what's going on with MNPS, or what we don't know about MNPS as it relates to grants provided by Ascend and Community Foundation. We kept this basically at a baseline. So there is room here for additional revenue, but broken down by existing directors, existing technicians as far as dues.
Which one are we looking at?
It's the Excel doc. It's entitled
Okay.
FY21 Budget Worksheet.
Yeah, thank you.
We had placeholders for a drone class, which would be shared by, the revenues be split between outside instructor and NECAT, making it only at 2 a year to begin with, at a minimum of 10 people. And then we also had the documentary class listed at 4 per year, again, 10 minimal people per class. And then as far as grants, we discussed the Predators that has been received. That is contingent upon being able to execute a sports TV camp, hopefully this summer, if not early fall. The Ascend grant of $5,000 I mentioned at the top of the meeting, it still has not been dispersed yet. This will be very contingent upon what MNPS does. Ascend has been very, very liberal as far as if we need to revise this, depending on what the limitations are for extracurricular outside of the school area activities and offsite facilities. And we will pivot as necessary. What we've done in the past that we've gotten this money for is basically job shadows. Again, 10 to 12 students working around the studio and getting instructed on various components of the studio. So again, that's when that money comes in, and depending on where we are with what MNPS decides on how they will calibrate their school, how things works with the schools will determine how we actually execute that grant. The Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, which we did get this year, similar with MNPS and school programs, that will be applied for again this year in July. And then lastly, the big nut of all this is the Dugas Family Foundation. This has been in the past given for operational costs, but also in tandem with activities for youth-oriented programming. In the past, we received $50,000 for this, previously used in conjunction with both the Our Nashville and the MNPS Job Shadow, as well as Sports TV Camp. They will be meeting in August. We will be receiving an application to apply for grants, if not June, then early July. And if approved, depending on the amount that we get in from the Dugas Family Foundation, should be dispersed by October. As far as individual giving, those are, again, kind of a sandbag low amount of $1,500 versus what we have currently for this year. And then salary remains static. Our insurance liability and board remains static, as well as the admin breakdown. So with all that, not accounting for anything, the big question mark being the Dugas Family Foundation, the current budget sits at a negative $31,175. I open this up to anyone on the call to discuss, question, or provide any insight on why we might be looking for additional revenue. I know that in the past we've done fundraisers, we've done events. None of that has been added in. I mean, these are things depending on how the nature of things shape up with the virus will make themselves available to us or not. So I open it up to the board.
Tyler, can you remind me how much the PPE or the PPP, how much
Yes, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, $9,250 was received on the 15th of May, and that is purely for Cameron's wages. Right now, I believe our current cash balance is $29,050. Rachel, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And that gives us about a 5 to 5.5 month operating expense window.
That's right, $29,090.18, and that gives us 5.55. So you're spot on.
And that's without receiving the 5,000 if we can use it for the Ascend grant and whatever, and the additional community foundation grant or whatever we got family foundation. If there are any additions or any things you guys would like to submit to us, we would like to get a vote on this the next month prior to the end of the fiscal year, so we can put this budget into record. With that, I open it up again to any outstanding items, questions, comments, or concerns about anything with the studio, NECAT in general.
Yeah, Tyler, is there any ways that we can, maybe Cameron, can do like some of the classes online and charge like maybe $10 per person so we can keep some revenue coming in, maybe? Can be like a Zoom class, maybe the part that is like written content that they can go over. You know, I know that the studio is closed, but some of the classes that is pretty much written content they can go over online and then go later to a second class when the studio open to do hands-on based on what they learn in theory.
I'm not opposed to that. So much of what we teach is very hands-on. So it really just depends. I mean, we can open that up and see if there's anyone that would sign up for that to do it twice, basically, because it would basically be sitting through the class 2 times, which I'm perfectly fine teaching it that way if anyone is willing to, you know, to come in and learn that way.
I mean, it's doable. If you have a camera at home, some of the equipment that you use personally, you can use that to teach the class online. And that, you know, if they have equipment, they say, bring your equipment because we're going to be teaching this, and that online on a Zoom call. So that would be a way to get some money into the studio.
Sure. And so far, and Rachel, you would have to double check me on this, but our regular donations have stayed steady. I get the emails from the PayPal when people do donate. All of that has been the same. We've even had people that have renewed their memberships throughout this whole thing, even though they can't use the studio. That is one of those things that I think we are going to have to address whenever the time comes, is taking these last couple months and posting that at the end of people's memberships just so they're getting everything that they had paid for. But in the interim, I think anything we can do to help to drive it, you know, I think would be good. I'm here for you guys, and I'm here for, you know, all of our members all the time. Anything I can do that's going to be helpful to get them educated and back on television, I'm here to do. So whatever, you know, we think is best, I'm for it.
And also, I'm sorry, Sheila.
No, thoughts, nobody say anything else. So I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I think it's a great idea. But I don't know, maybe can be based on the new equipment that's been installed in the studio or something. If you need help planning the class, I'm open to it too.
Sure. And I do know right before the pandemic started, Adam had made some really great short videos kind of establishing some of the new equipment. And we had plans in place to have some of that stuff just available. That way people could watch it at home. We had started advertising some of that through social media. That is the kind of stuff that I would like to see, you know, get produced. It really is just a matter of when we can safely do that. I don't want to put anything on John or Tim or Adam that obviously they're overworked right now as it is trying to take care of everything. But I do know that is one of the things we are planning to do as this new equipment opens up, is shoot more video about the stuff. That way people can kind of get a refresher course at home. All that's going to come, you know, in time. It just all this hit right whenever we were about to push the switch on something brand new. So it's going to be interesting when we get back, because I think everyone is going to have to relearn a whole lot of things all at once.
Cam, I had another question. As far as, I know we talked about this offline briefly, but as far as rescheduling, when we do indeed reopen, is there a plan in place to take care of the backlog as far as programming, shooting the actual shows versus the classes?
We had about a month's worth of stuff on the schedule whenever we closed the studio down, and I definitely have heard from members who had things on the books that want to get back in there. We haven't really established how we're going to give priority to one over the other at this point, because we have been closed now for 2.5 months. We didn't know if this was going to be a 2-week situation or now a 2-month situation. So I think what's going to happen is whenever we open it up, it's just opening it up to all of our members to book the same way that we always have. In the past, we had closed down on Mondays and Tuesdays. I know there has been some discussion about possibly opening that back up just to give us a couple more days a week that people can get back in. I think that really is just going to have to come after seeing how many people booked the studio. The good news is, before all this happened, we were running all the time. I mean, it was our morning and our afternoon studio bookings were booked up almost every day. So the studio was running great. We hope that whenever we come back, it continues to do the same. And we also have an influx of new people, like John was saying, because of the new equipment. I personally feel that the best way to do that is probably going to be to open up that Monday and Tuesday. That is not our call at NECAT with myself or with the board, but just in conjunction with Chris and John and the Metro office. They've been absolutely great in listening to us on the things that we need. And I think as long as we can show that we've established, that the public needs it, I think that they will help, provide that in the best way possible. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, John or Chris.
I think that's, I would love to open them back up on Monday and Tuesday. I do think that there is going to need to be a couple things. Number one is there's going to need to be a show that the demand is there, obviously, and that's difficult to do when studios close. But obviously, the amount of bookings that we're receiving is going to be a huge factor. I think that what we've been telling people when they're wanting to book right now is to continue to add events or bookings in the calendar, and just with the anticipation that we are going to be open eventually. Now, obviously, as time goes on, we have to start closing days that people have booked and cancel people's bookings. But we are encouraging people to continue to accept those cancellations, but then book in the future so that they don't, like Cameron said, once we open up, we're going to have to just be honoring people's reservations that are on the calendar. So obviously we're in a very difficult position, but we want to be able to accommodate the people that have had the bookings on the calendar for months and months before we even opened up. And we also want to take care of the people who had their bookings canceled to no fault of their own, just based on the fact that we had to cancel based on the coronavirus. So we're going to have to work with them, and we're going to have to try and make the best of the situation. But in regards to opening up on Monday and Tuesday, one of the things that we're also dealing with is the fact that we've got a staff member on our side who had just recently quit. And so because of the fact that Metro is on a hiring freeze because of the lack of overall funds, that's going to be something we need to negotiate and figure out how to fill that position and allow and have, the powers that be allow us to have that position. I don't know if we're going to have to go the route that we usually go, which is going to have a contract position in the interim until we can get a full-time Metro staff person in there. But that's going to be pretty important when opening up on Monday and Tuesday, just so that we can have those staff hours covered. So there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done, when we open up and before we open up. But I've got, obviously no doubt that we can get it done. It's just going to be a matter of us working together and communicating and Cameron and I are obviously prepared for that.
You bring up a good point though, John. As part of the NPS programming, I know Cynthia was very hands-on with the job shadowing. Depending on if that position can get filled, do we foresee potential issues with that part of the program?
No, I mean, I think that we have the staff to be able to fill in for those programs when they happen, whether it be Tim, Adam, me. We've got the staff and the skill sets of the staff that we currently have in order to fill those positions. It's just a matter of us, juggling those schedules to make it work. But I don't foresee that being an issue. When those programs happen, we'll make sure that they're staffed and make sure that we have the appropriate people in place for that stuff. It's just going to be a matter of us when we are going to be hiring for that position. It's just going to be a matter of us making sure that we get the skills that are going to allow those types of events to be filled for the, and the same thing we always do when we hire positions is we think about what type of tasks we're going to be asking for and what type of skills we need, and hiring with that in mind. So we did that with Adam and the next person that we hire, I fully intend on, obviously working with Cameron, working with the board, the NECAT board, to figure out what the direction that you want to take and we collectively all want to take, and making sure that we have the right person in place to be able to go in that direction. So, obviously we've got a lot more work as far as opening back up, but your direction as a board is going to heavily determine, what type of position Chris and I need to fill, or what type of person we need to fill that position. So, that's going to play a big factor in it.
That makes sense. Thanks, John. Any other board discussion that we'd like to bring up while we're all here?
I was just going to make two comments. One is just to make sure, as the bearer of the ugly news, in January, we won't have enough money for bills if things don't change. So just to kind of wrap our brains around that, with a little bit that might still be coming in and with what we already have as a surplus, by January, we're going to not be able to pay something. And then I just to Sheila's comment, I feel like so many organizations and so many things are doing some kind of an online offering, and it almost just feels like NECAT should do some kind of an online offering. And I wonder if, even if there's just a brief, here's from where you are, how you can get your programming on that's free to members, but a charge to non-members that might encourage them to become members. Because then also you're offering something to the membership, like organizations that I'm a member of, even just whatever Zoom little programs they have, I'm just glad that they're not forgetting about me and that they're saying, hey, if you want to log on and listen to this person talk or whatever. So, or even just offer like that, a person talking, someone in the community like Big Fella, who's everybody might know, and be like, hey, Big Fella's just going to talk about his history in the industry or whatever. So that's just a thought to Sheila's point about staying in everyone's sight lines. So that's it.
A great idea, Rachel. One thing that we did do, we sent this out in an email, we posted to social media. We have opened up a little bit on our shoot from home situation to people that are non-members for that exact reason, just to kind of help put some eyeballs on it. We did have definitely have had some musicians who have submitted some music and things like that we were able to kind of get up and running. I didn't have as good a response as I wanted for that, because I really had hoped that we would have more people shooting stuff at home, that not really so much to continue the shows that they had already established, which they're still doing, but just some brand new type of content. We see so many great Facebook Live videos going right now. That's the kind of stuff that we would love to put on TV. And so I think anything we could do to help, establish that is a good idea. I think even the thing that me and Shayla did a couple weeks ago for the big payback, where she had me on her show and we did it online, I think finding more content like that we could run online as well as NECAT, I think would be wonderful. So I'll definitely take a look into that. And if anyone here on the board wants to have a conversation that we can air on NECAT, I would love to have you on for that.
Yeah, Rachel, I was going to say that earlier about free to members and then charge them for the one that are non-members. And I also remembered that I have the hearing confirmation on June 5th for my second term.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Cameron,
actually-
this is Shauna. I was going to offer, if you want my Zoom account, I know Metro may have accounts we can use for online meetings, but I'm happy to offer mine if that would help us with online content.
Yeah, that would be great.
I also have one in case it's needed.
I will take you both of them. If you just want to shoot me an email on anything I need to know for login, or just talk to me after the meeting on the phone, that would be fine too.
Cameron, I had it reminded me too, are we able to implement, you had brought up, I believe, if not in the January meeting, a previous discussion about applications for outside content for the independent film community?
Yes, one of the things that I had hoped to establish this year was to do an independent film festival, which we would work through filmfreeway.com, which is the #1 site for filmmakers submitting films to film festivals. There are already some community access stations that have done this as well, where people that are outside of Nashville can submit anything that they make that we could look at. We set a price on what it costs to submit. We review the content and we program it accordingly. This would work for music videos, for short films, for music. Basically, we would just have a one-pager, which is something I think we should go back to anyways, where we establish that all the rights, they have all the permissions, for everything that is in there to run it on television. We would basically take all of those different types of things. If we had people, just basically do a couple hours a day that was just documentaries, or if we had people that just wanted to send music videos, or people just wanted to send romantic movies, we could have total segments of that we could build out of this content. It would be a revenue generator, as well as just basically taking all this old content that people have that is living on the internet or living on people's hard drives, that they can just put out there. My initial plan was to have this where people could submit it from all over America, but we could also have a special pricing for people that are in Nashville, for maybe people who don't want to come and make a television show at NECAT, but still have local made content that we could air on the network. And my hope at the time had been we could also have something at the studio where basically we could set up a screen, show movies one day, and kind of have a mixer, kind of the same way that we did with the Nashville 48-hour film festival last year. That way the money would be coming in towards NECAT, but also would be able to open our doors to establish, to just show people what we have going on up there. I think we could definitely start that sooner than later, just so we have some more income coming in, and I can jump right in on that. That doesn't take much more than the board saying that it's okay for me to go ahead and do that, and just setting up the Film Freeway account in a way that all of the money would be basically put into the bank account once it's all said and done. But I can coordinate with whoever I need to on that to set it up. I've done most of the actual legwork on I've got everything typed up for it. It's just a matter of picking a day to launch it and doing a social media blitz to let people know.
Can you circulate that with the board so we can review it?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ken. Approaching the hour mark here. Are there any other outstanding issues or board items anyone would like to bring up?
So do you guys have to, at what point do you have to vote on a budget for FY21?
Next month, June.
All right.
Yep.
And if it's appropriate, I mean, I don't know if this would work this way or not, but I could prepare I could prepare 2 budgets for 6 months at a time. I don't know how, unless you want to approve a budget that's in the black. I mean, in the red, rather.
I mean, unless we want to actually assign a dollar amount for an expected grant, which is what the deficit is, the 31,000 is pretty much caused by not putting anything in the block. But I think that's a good point. We should probably make 2 anyway. One with, one without.
Hey, Tyler, I just want to remind everybody that is putting input on the business plan to go in there and review it. I added some more information to the business plan. I don't know if you guys got the chance to review it. It would be great to have that finished so we can focus on trying to get those things accomplished in the business plan.
And a lot of that was obviously contingent upon, what we'd be able to do once, we're out of lockdown. So it's a great call out. And we'll add that link to the plan, to the minutes as well. Anything else from anybody? No. Well, this has been fun, interesting, new. I thank you all for your time and your dedication to this board. I want to thank ITS guys as well for everything that they're doing. Cam, obviously, keeping strong, and Rachel for all your excellent work on the bookkeeping. We'll probably do this again unless something radically changes in June. But for now, I want to wish everyone, health and happiness. Please stay safe. And with that, I'd like to call this meeting to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
Good to see everybody.
Good to
Thank
see
you,
all.
everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.